The neon sign of the Blackwood Motel buzzed, casting a sickly pink glow over the cracked asphalt. It was 2 a.m. on a desolate stretch of Route 66 in New Mexico. Inside the cramped front office, Ethan rubbed his tired eyes. He had taken this night shift job for the quiet, a chance to read, study, and escape the chaos of the city. He didn't expect the silence to be so heavy. The radio on the desk crackled with static, cutting through the stillness. Suddenly, the brass bell above the heavy wooden door chimed. Ethan blinked. He hadn't heard a car pull into the gravel lot. A man stepped inside. He wore a pristine, vintage 1950s charcoal suit, despite the blistering summer heat outside. His skin was impossibly pale, stretched just a little too tight over his sharp cheekbones. But it was his eyes that made Ethan's stomach drop. They were entirely black, dilated so wide that no white showed at all. "Good evening," the man said. His voice sounded layered, as if two people were speaking the same words at exactly the same time. "I require a room, the furthest one back." Ethan swallowed hard, his throat dry. Sure. Room 114 is available at the very end of the wing. That'll be $80. The man slid a crisp, old $100 bill across the counter. His fingers were long and skeletal, and they didn't quite touch the wood. They seemed to hover a millimeter above it. As Ethan reached for the key, the air in the room instantly plummeted. He could see his own breath misting in the sudden, unnatural cold. He handed over the brass key, careful not to let their fingers brush. "Thank you, Ethan," the man whispered. Ethan froze. He wasn't wearing his name tag. Before he could speak, the man turned and glided out the door. Through the window, Ethan watched him walk toward room 114. The stranger didn't cast a shadow under the flickering parking lot lights. The midnight check. By 3:30 a.m., a thick, suffocating fog had rolled in from the desert, swallowing the motel. Ethan tried to distract himself with a book, but a strange, rhythmic sound kept drawing his attention to the security monitors. Thump, thump, thump. It was coming from the back wing. It sounded like someone dropping a heavy sandbag onto the floor, over and over again. Then, the phone on the front desk rang, the sharp bell making Ethan jump out of his chair. He picked it up. Front desk. Nothing but heavy, ragged breathing filled the line. Then, a woman's voice, trembling and terrified, whispered, "He's looking at the wall. He hasn't blinked. Please, you have to make him stop." "Ma'am, what room are you in?" Ethan asked, panic rising in his chest. The line went dead. Ethan looked at the switchboard. The call hadn't come from an outside line. It had come from room 113, the room directly adjacent to the strange man in 114. Grabbing a heavy metal flashlight, Ethan stepped out into the freezing fog. The air smelled faintly of ozone and old copper. Every instinct screamed at him to run to his car and drive away, but he couldn't leave a guest in danger. Room 113. The long outdoor corridor felt endless. As Ethan approached room 113, the rhythmic thump, thump, thump grew louder. It wasn't coming from the floor. It was coming from inside the wall separating 113 and 114. He knocked softly on the door of 113. "Hello? Front desk. Is everything all right in there?" No answer. Just the heavy thumping. Ethan tried the handle. To his surprise, it was unlocked. He pushed the door open, the flashlight beam cutting through the darkness of the room. The space was completely trashed. The mattress was flipped, and the mirror was shattered. In the center of the room stood a young woman, her back to Ethan. She was staring at the wall, sharing a border with room 114. "Ma'am," Ethan whispered, taking a step forward. She didn't move her body, but with a sickening crack, her neck twisted completely around to face him. Her face was pale, her lips blue, and her eyes were wide, bloodshot, and entirely vacant. She wasn't breathing. Ethan stumbled backward, dropping his flashlight. As it rolled across the carpet, the light illuminated the wall she had been staring at. Dozens of deep, bloody gouges were scratched into the wallpaper, and written in dark, wet stains at the top was a single sentence: "Feeds on the attention." Suddenly, the thumping stopped. The void in 114. From the other side of the wall, a soft, scratching sound began. The sound of fingernails dragging against the drywall, moving slowly toward the connecting door between the two rooms. Ethan scrambled to his feet, panic completely taking over. He bolted out of room 113, but instead of running back to the office, curiosity and sheer terror made him glance at the window of room 114. The curtains were wide open. Inside, the man in the charcoal suit was standing perfectly still in the center of the room. The lights were off, but he was illuminated by a faint, roiling purple glow radiating from his own skin. His jaw was unhinged, dropping down to his chest in an impossible, monstrous gape, and from his open mouth, a thick, black smoke poured out, forming elongated, shadowy hands that tore at the air. The man's head snapped toward the window. Those pitch-black eyes locked directly onto Ethan. Ethan let out a choked scream. He turned and sprinted through the blinding fog, his boots slamming against the concrete. Behind him, he heard the door to room 114 slam open with explosive force. The escape. He didn't look back. He burst into the front office, slammed the heavy wooden door shut, and threw the deadbolt. He dragged the heavy vending machine in front of the door, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The office windows began to rattle. The fog outside pressed hard against the glass, turning completely black. Then came the knock. Soft, polished, polite. Knock, knock, knock. Ethan, the layered voice called out from the other side of the wood. You looked. Now you have to pay the bill. Ethan collapsed behind the front desk, covering his ears, closing his eyes tightly, and praying for the sun to rise. He repeated the words from the wall over and over in his head. It feeds on the attention. Don't look. Don't look. The scratching on the door lasted for hours, a relentless, agonizing sound that chipped away at his sanity. The morning after, when the first rays of the New Mexico sun finally pierced through the fog, the scratching stopped. Ethan slowly opened his eyes. The office was flooded with bright, warm daylight. Trembling, he pushed the vending machine aside and unlocked the door. The parking lot was completely empty. The fog was gone, replaced by the dry desert heat. Ethan walked down the corridor to the back wing, his heart hammering against his ribs. The door to room 113 was closed. He used his master key to open it. The room was perfectly clean. The bed was made, the mirror was intact, and there was no blood on the wall. Confused and questioning his own mind, he walked over to room 114. The door was unlocked. Inside, everything was pristine. But on the neatly made bed sat a single object. It was the brass room key Ethan had handed the man the night before. Next to it was the crisp $100 bill. Ethan picked up the bill. As he turned it over, his blood ran cold. Written on the back in fresh, wet black ink, as if the writer had just finished it a second ago, was a message.